The other day I was in a conversation and, we were talking about women, the usual conversation between men. And while we were talking about the woman, it occurred to me that many men build their identity around getting women. Many men build their self worth or perceived self worth off of getting women, right? And let's be real, we all want women. They're beautiful, they're wonderful, they make us feel loved. We get to love them. They fulfill our needs. We fulfill their needs. We need them. We need them. It's all right to say that. But one dangerous trap that we must avoid as men is falling into the beauty of a woman, falling into building our identity around a woman. This is building upon a very unstable foundation. And, I wrestled with this myself. And usually the thoughts I would follow were, you know, is she looking at me? Is she gonna recognize me? Is she gonna recognize all the hard work I've been putting in? Does she see me? Why aren't they seeing me? Why don't they acknowledge me? Why does she look at me but she doesn't come up to me? And this is how I thought for a period of my life. And it's something that I had to work through and overcome. But as I continue through this video, I will explain that story. When you build your identity upon an unstable foundation, you're allowing the woman to dictate your worth, whether you think it consciously or not. Because you may say to yourself, nah, I'm getting the bag, I'm getting the bag, that way I could get the lifestyle. But a lot of dudes always follow, yeah, I'm getting better in shape, that way the women will look at me. Yeah, and yeah, I'm getting the bag, because women love money. So once I get the money, then I get the bitches. And it's a very narrow-minded mindset. And it's gonna, when you do finally get the woman, if you're allowed to get the woman, you're gonna realize how unstable you are. You're putting all your identity, who you are, into, let's be frank, a creature who's very up and down. And you're expecting her to validate you, approve you, recognize you. The truth is, like, anything you do, you have to do it for the Most High and for yourself. When we have a mission, when we have a purpose as a man, you know, men, our nature is to serve, is to serve. But what happens is that when it comes to the woman, many men, they don't embrace that servant nature in us. They instead put them on a pedestal. And when the woman they get, like when they do finally get the woman, they can't handle it. They start to betray themselves. They start to self-sabotage. They start to tolerate disrespect. In my own life, because I go cold approaching all the time, so I'm talking to women frequently. I recently, maybe like a couple months ago, went on a date, and the date was great. It was an amazing first date. And I had a moment where the woman, she was like, you're so great, like you're not performative, you're so authentic, you're in tune with your emotions. And I wasn't like, I'm not saying this to like boast on camera and be like, oh, look at me, but for me, it was a moment of recognition, and it felt really good to be recognized and not to be validated, because to be validated is like, you know, for her to, prove things that I think I need, But I just wanted to be seen. I wanted to be recognized, because a lot of the time, unknowingly, and this is when I talk about that the subconscious mind is very sneaky. I had this thought of, I want women to recognize me. I want them to see me. They don't even have to validate me, tell me I'm handsome, tell me I'm this, but just to know that they looked at me and they recognized me. Recognized, I'm fit. Recognized that I'm classy with my jewelry. Recognize the small things. And, a lot of us, we go unseen, we go unrecognized throughout our life. And that's when I realized that a part of me needed recognition from the woman, which is why they were always on my mind. And I will be honest with you, it was an obsession, like to get a girl. And in that moment, I would have told you, no, it wasn't an obsession. But now looking back on it, yes, it was. It was. And that energy, it permeates out of you, that you're needy, that you're trying to get something from them. See, a lot of men, they just try to get sex, which is very surface level. But it could be as simple as approval. It could be as simple as validation. It could be as simple as, you know, I'm hoping she tells me that I'm enough. For me, it was, I hope she sees me for who I am. Not that I'm enough, but just to be recognized. Because I would get compliments on my looks, on my style, and things like that, but that doesn't really fulfill me. But just for someone to see my efforts, recognize my efforts, in that moment and that day, I felt very proud. And that's when I realized I had an unstable part of me that I had to let go of. Because that energy, carrying that energy of you need a woman's recognition, it draws them away from you. It pushes them away from you, believe it or not, because you're subconsciously seeking that in your conversations. You're subconsciously acting off of that, even if it's in the back of your mind. And you have certain signals. You have certain signals, like just obsession or just certain thoughts come up. And when I finally had this realization, it was like the biggest lift off my shoulders. Like just the biggest weight off my shoulders. And honestly, I got wet. Honestly, like dealing with the woman has become way easier because now I'm not needy. I'm not operating with this unhidden desire, unhidden motive. I brought it out to the light. And as the scripture says, anything that comes out of darkness into the light will be exposed. And that was a part of me that had to be exposed. That way I could actually handle dealing with women. And ironically, this improved my capacity overall. This primed my body to be able to do more because now I'm not carrying all this tension. So within these past 2 months, I've actually been able to become more disciplined. I've actually been able to keep a stricter routine. I've actually been able to feel freer, honestly. Like once you realize you had this thing running you in the background, it was like the biggest weight lifted off my shoulders. So I ask you guys, were you guys still, what part of you is still seeking a woman's validation, seeking a woman's approval? What part of you are you still doing things for the woman and not for yourself? Now, honestly, it's become way easier to approach because I'm not battling myself. I'm not battling for recognition. I've given myself permission to recognize myself, to recognize my accomplishments, my achievements, my hard work. And this took off so much pressure from me. And let's be candid, all of us have parts of us that are fishing for a woman in some shape or form.